نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد. نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد. نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد.
وسحاب يهطل مغفرة ليغيث قلوبا تتوقد بالحب وبالرحمة تشدو حلقات زانت تتجسد.
نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد.
أعلام الدعوة يا رمزا يا مشعل نور يتزود يا بحرا ساحله هدي يحمل أرواحا تتوجه.
أعلام الدعوة يا رمزا يا مشعل نور يتزود يا بحرا ساحله هدي يحمل أرواحا تتوجد. أعلام الدعوة يا رمزا يا مشعل نور يتزود يا بحرا ساحله هدي يحمل أرواحا تتوجد.
حلقات 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 حلقات.
نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد.
والموج شباب قد أمضى عزما للباري يتعبد قد جادوا بكتاب المولى كي يصبح تاجا يتجدد.
كي يصبح تاجا يتجدد. نجوم لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد.
لاحت في الأفق لتسمعنا من فيض العزة ما تنشد يا مرتع علم يا علما للدعوة نبراسا تشهى.
يا مرتع علم يا علما للدعوة نبراسا تشهى.
لاحت في الأفق لتسمعنا من فيض العزة ما تنشد يا مرتع علم يا علما للدعوة نبراسا تشهد. للدعوة نبراسا تشهد.
لاحت في العليا لتناجي العزة والسؤدد وبريق يسطع أخاذا ونفوس الناس بها تسعد. تسعد تسعد.
It is believed armed terrorists are holding missing Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl in Pakistan. These pictures sent to the paper through email show Pearl in captivity. The group accuses him of being a CIA officer, but the agency says it is not true. In sports, the Super Bowl matchup is set.
Secretary of State Colin Powell spoke by telephone today with Pakistan's president, expressing official U.S. concern for Daniel Pearl, a Wall Street Journal reporter kidnapped last week in Pakistan. CBS's Jim Axelrod reports the kidnappers have sent an email that includes pictures of the 38-year-old American journalist.
The gun to the head has put hearts in the throats of everyone who knows Daniel Pearl.
Brutal, absolutely brutal. It's a very hard thing to look at, even if I didn't know him.
Pearl is the 38-year-old Wall Street Journal reporter taken hostage in Pakistan by a group which claims he's a U.S. spy.
He is a respected journalist, and he has no connection with the United States government.
Pakistani police say the kidnappers have close ties to Al-Qaeda. An email to several newspapers lists a wide range of demands, none of them religious. From the release of the Taliban's former ambassador to Pakistan to a handover of F-16s purchased from the U.S. but never delivered to Pakistan, to a return of all Pakistani nationals held at the U.S. prison camp in Cuba.
I don't know what this organization believes it's going to gain, but what they've done here is they've targeted a journalist who was just going about his business, trying to independently report the news.
His business now is survival. The email says Pearl will live in what they call the same inhuman circumstances as the prisoners at Guantanamo.
It brought me back directly to Iran. Those photos were so vivid.
Iran was where Barry Rosen spent more than a year as a hostage at the American embassy, one of the few who can look beyond the photos into what Daniel Pearl might be feeling.
You feel that you're totally disarmed, you're naked, you're without any strength or help. And these are the most fearful days of all.
Fear could well be the main goal of the kidnappers. A U.S. journalist might not be traded even up for a Taliban big shot, or fighter jets for that matter. But if Western reporters start disappearing in Pakistan, it could create the impression of instability there. Dan?
State Colin Powell said today the United States is doing all it can trying to free the American journalist Daniel Pearl, kidnapped last week in Pakistan. Secretary Powell emphasized the U.S. government will not discuss the kidnappers' demands which includes sending Pakistanis detained at the Guantanamo Naval Base in Cuba home for trial. But whatever discussions there are, CBS's Barry Peterson reports, they're taking place in cyberspace.
The issue is Wall Street Journal reporter Danny Pearl's life or death. And for the first time in this internet age, the delicate negotiations are being done with emails flying between Pakistan and the United States. Today's message was a reprieve of the deadline for his execution. "We will give you one more day," the message read. "If America will not meet our demands, we will kill Daniel." It came with another threat against American journalists. Then this cycle will continue, and no American journalist could enter Pakistan. The reprieve may have been a reaction to an earlier plea from the Wall Street Journal. Killing Danny will achieve nothing, the paper's managing editor emailed the kidnappers. His murder would be condemned by the entire world. The kidnappers, whoever they are, can use the web's anonymity to cover their tracks. There are internet cafes like this all over Pakistan. Investigators can trace an email back to the computer that sent it, but then the trail goes cold. Investigators have one lead. The Muslim cleric that Pearl was trying to meet turned himself in. The real issue may be America's war in Afghanistan, which Pakistan's president is supporting.
It's aimed more to embarrass him and which, to put him in a very tough spot and to somehow try and spoil the US-Pakistan relationship on this fight against terrorism.
Whatever the kidnappers' motives, Danny Pearl will spend one more night as a pawn in their game and one more night alive. Barry Peterson, CBS News.
Inside
Islamabad.
Afghanistan today, U.S.
Getting Magazine, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
In the search for Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl, Pakistani police are looking for a second suspect who may be responsible for his disappearance. But the question remains, is Pearl alive? Barry Peterson is in Islamabad. Barry, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gretchen. Well, we continue to hear official words of optimism and, as we have heard for days past, promises of some sort of a breakthrough coming soon. But all of this comes against the backdrop of days of negative news. Officials are still trying to unravel the conspiracy with only one main suspect in hand, Sheikh Omar Saeed, brought to court earlier this week. And in court, he took responsibility for the kidnapping and said he understood Pearl was already dead. But police remain optimistic, in part because they believe Pearl is in the hands of others, that once Saeed played his part, luring Pearl to a fateful meeting, those others took over. So police continue their raids in Karachi and other cities, hopeful that each arrest, each new person detained, brings them one step closer to the people actually holding Pearl. The ringleader may be the man who organized this 1999 hijack of an Indian Airlines plane. It was taken to Kandahar in Afghanistan. The Indian government agreed that it would exchange the plane's passengers for 3 prisoners in Indian custody. One of them, Sheikh Omar Saeed, being held in connection with another hostage-taking. The bottom line here, the investigation continues and hope remains that Pearl is alive.
I have to be cautiously optimistic. Logically, I would say that for an intelligent captor like Sheikh Omar, it would make more sense to negotiate with him alive than dead.
Investigators say they have found no solid evidence of Pearl's death. To put it bluntly, they have not found his body, and so they consider that a reason to hope that Pearl is still alive. Gretchen?
Barry, obviously this is a difficult situation because the stories keep changing, but what are investigators going to do today?
Well, they're still making a series of arrests. They've identified another suspect they think they may be involved, and as they have in the past, if they can't find the suspect, they start arresting or detaining members of his family to put some pressure on him. They're hoping maybe that will be the break they're looking for to resolve this case.
All right, we hope so. Thank you so much, Barry Peterson in Islamabad this morning. A trial date is now set for the so-called American Taliban. John Walker.
In hoods and chains, the men arrested for Daniel Pearl's kidnapping went to court, but they weren't charged with murder. Instead, a judge jailed them for at least another 2 weeks, giving authorities more time to pursue a case full of questions.
The dead body is yet to be recovered. Pieces of evidence such as the crime weapon is to be recovered. Other accused persons are required to be recovered.
Kidnapping with murder is a capital crime here. The suspects could face a death sentence in a Pakistani court. But since the victim was American, they could also face prosecution in the U.S. In fact, U.S. officials were pressing Pakistan to arrest the self-confessed organizer of the kidnap, Sheikh Omar Saeed, months before Pearl was abducted. Saeed's accused in a 1994 kidnapping in India of 4 tourists, including an American.
Sheikh Omar is a nasty character. He's been involved as a suspect in kidnappings and crimes against American citizens for many years. He's someone that we've had our eye on.
Now the U.S. has a new question for Pakistan's government about Saeed. Why was he held by the ISI, Pakistani intelligence, for a week before police and the FBI got to question him about Pearl's disappearance?
One has to wonder if there is any kind of official complicity in this. Daniel Pearl had been on a trail to look at evidence showing links between the terror groups and elements in the ISI.
Until Pakistan joined America's war on terror, the ISI was its not-so-secret link to the Taliban in Afghanistan and with Al-Qaeda. There was grumbling in the agency when the link was cut. Now investigators believe there may be an Al-Qaeda connection to the Pearl case in the lawless frontier along the Afghan-Pakistan border, where they're searching for at least 7 suspects still at large. Richard Roth, CBS News.
Tonight we're going to introduce you to the man Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl died trying to interview. His name is Sheikh Mubarak Gilani, a mysterious figure out of the world of Islam. He is said to be a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. But for Daniel Pearl, 2 other things set him apart. First, Gilani, along with his followers, have appeared in the State Department's report of terrorist organizations. Second, and even more provocative, the Sheikh has thousands of disciples who live right here in the United States. Like any good reporter, Pearl was following a lead. He thought that Richard Reid, the alleged shoe bomber, may have been a part of Gilani's network of disciples. When our reporter George Crile arrived in Pakistan on February 11th, 20 days after Daniel Pearl had been taken captive, Pearl's fate was still unknown. But the man Pearl had been chasing, Sheikh Gilani, was now behind bars, a principal suspect in Pearl's kidnapping.
But again, they've hit just the mosque.
In the world of militant Islam, this man, Khalid Khwaja, seems to be a friend of just about everyone. Osama bin Laden is one of his closest friends, but he is even closer to Sheikh Mubarak Gilani. And that's why last January, when Daniel Pearl wanted to reach Sheikh Gilani, he came to Islamabad to find Khalid Khwaja, who spoke with our reporter George Crile.
How much time did you spend with Daniel Pearl?
He came to me I think in the end of September, maybe, or somewhere in that. He called me from Bombay that he's coming to Karachi. Then he came to Karachi and he asked me to introduce him with some people in Karachi. I did that.
He says he specifically told Pearl that Sheikh Gilani would not see him.
Then he kept on calling me on various occasions and asking my opinion and discussing certain things with me. And then he just disappeared.
Disappeared into the hands of his kidnappers in Karachi, and soon after, Sheikh Gilani was jailed as the principal suspect.
I have all my sympathies and my feelings for Daniel, but I was more worried about Mubarak Gilani and his family, who were in fact kidnapped, because there's nothing against them, there's no case.
We first met Khalid Khwaja over a year ago when he introduced us to the forbidden world of Osama bin Laden. And well before September 11th, he warned that America was on a collision course with Islam and made this disturbing prediction.
America is a very vulnerable country. You are a very open country. I tell you, your White House is the most vulnerable target. It's very simple to just get it.
That was bin Laden's world. This year, Khwaja took us into the world of Sheikh Gilani. 7 days after being jailed in connection with the Pearl kidnapping, Khwaja was the first to hear the news of Gilani's release.
Mubarak Shah Gilani is there. He's freed, by the way. He's been released. You are the first person who has the news. I just talked to him. Now, if you want to see Mubarak Shah Gilani with his family and all that, best way is go with me to Lahore right now.
Okay.
and then we can see him.
Let's go.
The atmosphere was tense throughout Pakistan when Khalid Khwaja set off with our man Crile that afternoon to meet the Sheikh. Cars were being stopped and searched, houses raided. Pakistani and American officials were turning the country inside out, trying to find Daniel Pearl. Before the kidnapping, few had heard about Sheikh Gilani. But for years, the U.S. government had kept him and his organization in the State Department's report on terrorism. The same report that Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda network now dominates. In the report, Gilani's organization was described as an Islamic sect that seeks to purify Islam through violence. His followers, who call themselves the Muslims of America, are based right here in the United States. Thousands, operating in 19 states across the country. Most of them, like these Gilani followers in South Carolina, are African-American Muslims who turn to Mecca 5 times a day, who live in self-contained Islamic communities, like this one they named Islamville, with its own mosque, its own school, and more than 100 residents. All of them accept Sheikh Mubarak Gilani as their ultimate authority.
Let not Americans misunderstand this system. Because I'm telling you, Osama doesn't have many people in America. But here, he has lots and lots of followers there. And followers who, I'm telling you, I'm sure of one thing. Osama does not have even one of his followers as committed as Mubarak Shah Gilani has. I'm very sure. I know the followers of Osama, and I don't know of even one. I'm telling you, not even one who's as committed as the least of his people.
Well, that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
It was midnight, February 12th, when Crile and Khwaja reached the outskirts of the city of Lahore and wove their way through the back streets and dirt roads that lead to the Sheikh's walled compound. The Sheikh welcomed them into his home. Was this man at the heart of a terror network that threatened the U.S.? Was he behind Richard Reid, the man charged with trying to blow up a flight from Paris with explosives planted in his shoe? That's what Daniel Pearl was trying to find out. Our man George Crile had the opportunity to ask those questions of the Sheikh, who does not operate in public and does not give interviews. But he was quick to point out that he had nothing to do with Pearl's kidnapping.
This is the Daniel Pearl question, then, which is that he didn't get to ask you, which is Richard Reid. Are there any connections at all to you, to your organization?
Why should he? Why? I don't understand. The man who is not known to anybody in the entire United States. I tell you, I do not meet new people. The system is such that there's a list of people maybe who might be able to see me after 3 years. I don't meet new people.
But in this case,
at that point, one of his American disciples who was taping the interview offered a helpful clarification.
Richard Reid, do you know him? Do you have any connection?
No, I don't like it. The Daniel Pearl, I never heard about him.
Not Daniel Pearl, Richard Reid.
I know that. I do not know anything about him.
What he's trying to say, any of your people...
No, nobody knows about him.
Any of them was ever connected to
No,
him?
nobody. Nobody knows. Nobody knows him in the United States. They say he was planted. The whole thing was set up.
As the Sheikh explained, he doesn't see outsiders, and the last interview he granted was nearly a decade ago. But over the course of 2 days, he continued to answer Crile's questions.
well, obvious question. Are you part of Al-Qaeda?
Why should I be part of it? I don't. I'm a reformer, educationist, and I am not part of anybody, nor...
I have another thing on this. See, like Sheikh's beliefs, like the head of Al-Qaeda is Osama. Osama's even beliefs are way different than the Sheikh would even accept.
I don't any group. Whatever is there before you. You know.
But do you know Bin Laden?
No.
Never met him?
No.
don't necessarily agree with his...
No, I have no right to agree, disagree. I mean, I keep to myself. And I do what I think is best for the people who follow me. First is peace, and others, they should work hard for their living, and they should be honest, good, trustworthy. That's how I told them. I know if anybody does something wrong, why blame me? Will you blame the Pope if some Christian does something wrong? No?
The Sheikh says that he is used to being a suspect whenever there's a terrorist act against the United States. But this time, when the authorities couldn't find him, they arrested his son.
Did they, at that time, believe that you were somehow, or your father was responsible for kidnapping?
They were blaming, that your father is involved. If you don't tell where your father is, we will take you to America.
But what does that mean, to be taken to America to you?
I don't know.
I mean, that's normally not considered a threat.
That is considered a threat.
Looking for clarity in this murky world is difficult.
Do you think we're going to be able to find our way back to the Sheikhs?
No, we should be able to.
Even for an ultimate insider like Khalid Khwaja, it is easy to get lost, and that's what happened when Khwaja and Crile ventured outside the Sheikh's compound.
Do you think this is it?
Streets without names, houses without numbers, go on forever. It's no wonder Daniel Pearl could not be found.
No, I think we are lost.
Eventually, they found the Sheikh's compound, and the Sheikh was eager to tell them why he thought America was making a mistake in thinking that he and his followers pose a threat. The real threat, he believes, comes from invisible forces, referred to in the Quran as jinns. To help us understand this, he points to an American television show, The X-Files. He says the mind control and evil influence that aliens wield over human beings in the program is much like the power of the invisible forces he believes in.
So that is what I say is that what is an X-file, most of things could have happened or will happen. Human beings can be made to do things against their will. They can be made to commit crimes. They can be made to go and kill people, and all your missiles or your rockets, spaceships go up, and electronics, they can be damaged, influenced, and misdirected through the agencies of jinn beings. I am the witness.
This is the Sheikh that Daniel Pearl was trying to interview. And everything about him, everything he said, seemed at odds with what we expected, including his next answer.
It does seem the concern is whether you have all of these militant Muslims in America operating as essentially sleeper cells ready to surface at a given moment to carry out a horrible act of destruction.
Why? Give me one reason. In America, the Muslims are better than any part of the world.
The American Muslims?
Yes. They have more freedom. They have more facilities of life. Where they will go? Okay, they do something wrong in America, where they will go? I don't want them. That's their country. The American Muslims are better off in America than anywhere else, and they will never do anything wrong against their country. That is my directive through you and to them.
Not exactly the marching orders you would expect from a man who had been listed in the U.S. report on terrorism. But Gilani and his followers, in fact, were taken off the list 2 years ago. And Gilani's praise for the United States seemed to set him apart from so many others in Pakistan. In fact, while Crile was there, it was confirmed that Daniel Pearl had been killed. And Khalid Khwaja talked about how many Pakistanis had no sympathy at all.
Generally, they don't feel much badly. Because they feel it very clearly that if nobody is feeling badly for our people, so if nobody is feeling badly for our thousands brothers and sisters who have been killed and injured, so why should they bother about one American?
To Khalid Khwaja, Pearl's murder represented a new level of anger moving through the world of militant Muslims since the war in Afghanistan began. The situation had changed so radically, he said, that Americans were no longer safe in Pakistan.
My people did not like my roaming around with you also. They would always tell me that you're making a mistake, these people are no good. And I'm telling you, I fear that, I fear for your security and safety here, because I don't think so you are very safe. This is why my even family today told me to request you to go back.
Our reporter George Crile returned safely 5 days later to work on this report. To this day, Daniel Pearl's body has not been found. And yesterday in Pakistan, a man who now admits he masterminded the Pearl kidnapping warned that if he is sent to America for trial, that America will suffer.